Hey, it's Matt Moscona. You found it. It's AFR Saints, your home for daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Please subscribe, smash the like button, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video. And our content this football season is presented by BetUS. Score a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next two deposits up to $2,000 when you use the promo code YouTube150. Enjoy the video. Who dat? Saints still in search of their next head coach. Ross Jackson joins us from Mobile, where he'll be all week for the Senior Bowl. Of course, Ross anchoring our coverage for LouisianaSports.net and the Locked On Saints podcast. How are you, dude?
Hey, man, doing great. Glad to be here with you. Appreciate you having me.
Oh, thanks for the time. Okay, let's go with the present, and then we'll kind of work our way back. What's the absolute latest on Saints coaching search here today, Monday?
Yeah, so latest thing right now is that after having done their in-person interviews with Anthony Weaver, Darren Rizzi, as well as Mike Kafka, the next interview is expected to be the Saints flying to Philadelphia to hold their in-person interview with Philadelphia Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore. The expectation is that after that, the Saints would potentially go forth with an interview with Mike McCarthy, a guy that was immediately considered a front runner in the conversation, but has not had any interview with New Orleans. And apparently a part of that comes from, and this was Nick Underhill over at New Orleans Football, apparently a big part of that is that they wanted to wrap up their interview with Kellen Moore and then kind of see where things go. Makes sense. Prioritize the guys that have been a part of your process from the very beginning and then add new names after you've already spoken with them. But I do think that that's also indicative of how serious the interest may be for New Orleans when it comes to Kellen Moore, if they do find that he's a good fit. So that interview is expected to take place early this week. So that could be happening as we speak, could be happening tomorrow. We'll see. But that's going to be the next big interview for New Orleans, is a pretty outstanding offensive mind in Kellen Moore, but you've got to learn a little bit more about what he would be like as a head coach.
Russ, am I wrong to say, like, it didn't seem like we were talking much about Kellen Moore until after the Eagles went and put up 55 in the NFC Championship game? Is this a sort of a prisoner of the moment thing for the Saints?
It could be a little bit of a, what have you done for me lately kind of a situation. But like the Saints have had Kellen Moore on the list for a while. He did a virtual interview with him weeks ago as well, as did Joe Brady before he eventually ended up withdrawing from the search. But I think when it comes to Kellen Moore, a big part of it in terms of the timing really just comes down to when is he available to do the in-person interview, because of how long Philadelphia's season has become with them going to the Super Bowl. This was the earliest possible moment where they could do an in-person interview with him. And I don't think that a loss to the Washington Commanders would have changed their interest. So I think some of it is timeline. I think that some of the excitement that you're seeing around it, though, could be very much prisoner of them.
We'll get right back to the video, but did you know that BetUS also has a casino? For all of our followers here, if you like slots or live casino dealers, you can take advantage of BetUS amazing sign-up bonuses. 200% sign-up bonus up to $5,000 or 250% for crypto sign-up bonus up to $5,000 as well. Discover the BetUS Casino Playground. Maybe you're a slots enthusiast. BetUS, they've got the games to raise your pulse. You can test your skills with timeless classics. You can also explore the newest, hottest slots and feel that casino buzz with BetUS live dealer tables. Y'all take advantage of this great special. Sign up now. Get 200% sign-up bonus up to $5,000 and 250% sign-up bonus up in crypto up to $5,000. So get ready for a rush with the BetUS Casino generous promotions and tournaments that make every play more rewarding. Sign up right now and experience the difference. Get your bonus. 200% sign-up bonus up to $5,000 and 250% crypto sign-up bonus also up to $5,000. Now, enjoy the rest of the video. Look at odds, and like Mike McCarthy's at the top of them now. Like, do you believe that Mike McCarthy is the number one target, like we all believe Aaron Glenn at one point was?
I don't know if I can really say that, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't think that I could say that he's the number one target, because if he was the number one target, he's been available since the moment that he walked away from the Dallas Cowboys on, what was it, the 14th or whatever, when his contract expired. And so the Dallas Cowboys didn't make that hard for him. They sat on their hands for 8 days before they eventually started having conversations with him. And then before they even got to negotiations, apparently Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones had decided that it was best for them to part ways, which is pretty indicative of Mike McCarthy saying, nah, fam, I'm good. And then maybe deciding that he's going to go and see what else is out there. He had the interviews very quickly with the Chicago Bears, and the Saints didn't really push on any of that. And they have prioritized the guys that have been a part of their process from the very beginning, Anthony Weaver, Mike Kafka, Kellen Moore, all that, before they've even gone down the road with Mike McCarthy. So he could be a front runner in terms of the guy that makes the most sense. He's the safest hire. He impacts your floor without necessarily shooting you through the ceiling, but he impacts your floor quite a bit. But the Saints don't seem to be in a rush there. And the way that they've waited for Kellen Moore seems to indicate that the actual waiting for Kellen Moore is more indicative of interest than maybe what the pursuit of Mike McCarthy might say at this point.
Ross Jackson on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. Joe Brady deciding to remain at Buffalo. I look at this, there's like one of three things going on. I'm curious what you think it is. One, like he's not interested in the Saints job. Two, he's really just genuinely interested in staying in Buffalo in that really good situation. Or, three, it could also be a situation where, I don't know, like maybe he wasn't going to get the Saints job. And so sometimes guys have an opportunity if they're not going to get the job that they say, I'm withdrawing from consideration sort of for the optics of it. What do you think about what happened here or what do you know about what happened here with the Brady situation?
Yeah, I think you hear a lot of the conversation being that he stayed in, or we're hearing a lot of the conversation that he stayed in Buffalo more because of Buffalo than anything having to do with the New Orleans Saints. That his decision wasn't about New Orleans, but was about his situation and the comfort that he has in Buffalo. There's probably truth to that, but look, I think that still says the same thing. It still says that though staying in Buffalo was a better opportunity for him than taking the head coaching job in New Orleans, right? It says the same thing. It's the difference between saying that shirt doesn't look good on you versus you don't look good in that shirt, right? Like they say it's the same thing, but you're just saying it a little nicer. You know what I mean? So I think like the reality is the reality. Like the Saints have to sell their situation, and if you can't adequately sell that situation, then the situation that somebody is coming from, the originating situation, is going to be more appealing. And I think that's all that happened in this Joe Brady situation. And the sting for New Orleans has to be around the idea that like this is a guy that used to be in your building and that has been a part of your culture, that's been a part of your organization, and didn't give you the in-person interview. I think that's kind of the thing. Now, the third option that you mentioned is interesting and could be the case where maybe he felt that, hey, I know that Kellen Moore maybe is actually the favorite in this conversation, or Mike McCarthy's lingering or whatever. I might not get this job. I'm going to be the hottest name next season. I don't want to ruin that by being the guy that got passed on, so let me protect my stock. And that could very well be a way that it goes, or that went as well.
Ross, are there other names we should be talking about right now? The answer might be no, but is there anybody else worth noting?
I don't know that anybody's going to enter the conversation late at this point, right? The Saints are there's still a ticking clock here with building the rest of the staff around New Orleans. You've already seen they're going to need a new offensive coordinator. We already knew they were going to need a new defensive coordinator. If Darren Rizzi isn't the hire, then they're going to need a new special teams coordinator, because it's not like he's going to stick around and take a demotion to stay in New Orleans and all those things. And so I think that's maybe a little bit of the rush. So I don't know that there's really an opportunity to add new names. Should we be talking about more names? I would say yes to that, because you would imagine that this search would have been a little bit more widespread. Guys like Todd Monken, guys like Brian Flores, and some of these others out there that would have been good candidates that weren't seemingly a part of the search. I think that's where we can say, like, yeah, there should be more names. But at this point, I don't think you're going to see new names added. The one and only name that could potentially be added now is Cliff Kingsbury, who said he was going to wait until the Washington Commanders are no longer competing to kind of weigh his options for his future. And so we'll see if he ends up doing that. But I think he's primed to go right back to Washington. I mean, why would you leave that situation? And so I think that might be the one name that we could add to the list, or see the Saints add to the list. But at this point, I don't expect that.
Do you have a timeline that the Saints would follow to make this hire?
I think the timeline that makes sense right now would be at some point late this week. And now it's going to depend on who they're hiring, right? If they're hiring Kellen Moore, then late in the week you could potentially get a report that says the Saints are expected to hire Kellen Moore after the Super Bowl, because he can't actually make it official until after the Super Bowl has concluded. So I think the thing that I look at here is a potential indicator of interest in Kellen Moore is how far this pushes towards the end of the week before any kind of announcement is made. In my opinion, the later that this goes, the more likely it's Kellen Moore. But otherwise, right after this interview is done with Kellen Moore, and then if an interview happens with Mike McCarthy, once that's done, the Saints would be free to hire any of those other four candidates: Rizzi, Weaver, Kafka, McCarthy. So I would expect something later on this week, but I will say that the later it goes, the more likely it is that it might be Kellen Moore.
A couple more for you. You mentioned obviously Clint Kubiak leaving. Is Michael Hodges, the linebackers coach, today headed to Cincinnati as well? I mean, Ross, I look at that and I go, well, it makes sense. These guys aren't going to have a job in New Orleans. They're going to take other jobs. Should we make anything of these guys leaving to take other jobs right now before a new coach is hired in New Orleans?
I don't think so. I think that those guys were going to be – I think I'm with you. I think those guys had no guarantees in New Orleans at this point. New head coach that could potentially be an offensive mind incoming, new defensive coordinator incoming. Those guys maybe didn't have a future in New Orleans anyway. Thanks for Clint Kubiak, who again is a one and done, but at least he's leaving for another offensive coordinator situation over in Seattle, and a good situation over there. So I think that the indicator for me when it comes to Kubiak is that he was given the opportunity to go and do that Cleveland Browns interview when he was considered the favorite there. He was given the opportunity to go and do 2 interviews with the Seattle Seahawks. I think that kind of says where this was heading from the very beginning. And those interviews are granted to him well before things kind of progressed in the New Orleans Saints head coaching search. So I think he was probably already on his way out. And then Michael Hodges was a really solid linebackers coach under Dennis Allen, but his only pro experience has been under Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen's not in the building anymore.
Right.
And so Michael Hodges now gets the opportunity to go somewhere where he knows somebody wants him now. Gets to go and work over there with the I think it's former Notre Dame
Al Golden, yeah.
Al Golden, thank you.
Yep.
And he gets to show, like, hey, he's the guy that's gotten looks as a defensive coordinator. He gets to say, hey, here's what I could do, not under Dennis Allen, not with the New Orleans Saints organization, which could help to push that stock back for him in terms of being a potential defensive coordinator in the future.
Ross Jackson, of course, LouisianaSports.net and the Locked On Saints podcast in Mobile for the Senior Bowl. 60 seconds or less, what are the top of the funnel storylines for the Saints in Mobile this week?
Yeah, I think you're watching edge rusher positions. I think you're watching wide receiver positions. I think quarterback can be very interesting because the Saints in the last three of their last 4 drafts have taken a quarterback that performed in the Senior Bowl. So that's going to be a big one to watch as well. And then outside of that, like, remember, the Senior Bowl is an opportunity for you to also kind of rub shoulders and everything like that, and kind of get some of this conversation with some of these other coaches and things like that too. So I would expect that to be a big part of it. But guys like Princely, Amon Mielen out of Ole Miss, big names to watch this weekend. And looking for your typical kind of Saints draft picks as they love their Senior Bowl prospects.
Please make sure T-Bob doesn't get arrested.
I will do my best.
All right.
Now, I can't make that promise, but I'll make the promise that I'll try.
Between you and Rivers,
we can do it.
I'm hoping, and Jake there as well. But really, you and Rivers being the adults in the room really need help just to make sure.
I'm more confident in Rivers than I am in myself, but the combination of Rivers and I think we can do it.
All right. Ross Jackson on Twitter at Ross Jackson Nola. Thanks, man.
Thanks, buddy. Appreciate you. Take care. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much for watching the video. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, hit the bell so you're notified when we post a new video, and remember to support BetUS, where right now you can get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and a 125% bonus on your next 2 deposits up to $2,000. Be sure to use that promo code YouTube150.